So I would say it's had no impact on the stockpiles because the decisions about those are taken and play out over a longer period of time. But it's obviously having a huge impact on the nuclear diplomacy, including the unprecedented or virtually unprecedented threats from different levels of the Russian government actually to use nuclear weapons. So whereas I think we've been fairly confident for much of the past 30 to 35 years that the nuclear threat and the threat of nuclear weapons use was diminishing, that has turned around in the last year and a half, and that is largely the direct effect of the Ukraine war. But in terms of the numbers of nuclear warheads, as I say, the Ukraine war hasn't yet had an effect on that.
Yes, but nevertheless, Russia, together with the US, are the two countries that have the biggest stockpiles.
So we count total inventory of nuclear warheads worldwide at about 12,500, and somewhere in the vicinity of just under 11,000 or just around 11,000 are owned by the USA and Russia together, combined. About 3,000 of that 12,500 are old nuclear warheads which are waiting to be dismantled. So the stockpile of the actively usable nuclear weapons is about 9,500. And on the one hand, compared to what the situation was in the 1980s, that's incredibly good news. There were 75,000 nuclear warheads worldwide in the mid-1980s. They're now an active stockpile of 9,500. Still enough to do, unimaginable damage, but way, way better than there being 8 times as many. But what we've seen, as you referred to in your lead-in, is that the size of that active stockpile has started to increase. So for me, the really bad news at the moment is not so much the nuclear bluster over Ukraine. It is the fact that we seem to be coming to the end of this 3-decade-long process of reducing nuclear weapons worldwide. We're now into a period where it looks likely that the numbers are going to tick up during this decade. Possibly be increasing by as much as 1,000.
So it's that stability of what we had come to accept over the last 30 years, but there's also what you point to as a lack of transparency. How concerning is that?
I think it is concerning. It's been, there's one nuclear weapon owning state, Israel, which has never confirmed whether it has nuclear weapons or not. China and North Korea are both pretty opaque as far as their programs are concerned. India and Pakistan, not a lot better. Russia also quite opaque. Up until now, the USA and the UK have been relatively open, perhaps a bit more open than France. But both of those have started to draw the shutters down a bit during the past year. So we have less clarity and less transparency about nuclear numbers now than we have had for a long time. And I want to emphasize that our figures are estimates. They're very seriously made estimates. They're made on the basis of a lot of evidence that's available, much more than most people would expect. But nonetheless, they're not absolute cut and dried facts. We make clear all the way through that these are our best estimates on strong methodologies of what the totals are.
Yeah. And to that point about China, you say they've always been fairly opaque, but what you are seeing is what you believe is quite an uptick in their stockpiles. What do you make of that?
Yeah, last year we saw satellite evidence that there were what seemed to be in the vicinity of 300 new missile silos being constructed. And based on our estimate of their production rates and their stockpiles of fissile material, we think that they've increased the number of nuclear warheads in the active stockpile from 350 to 410 during the past year. Now, in the global total, 60 out of 9,000, it's not a big proportion. In the Chinese total, 60 on top of 350 is a 16% increase. So we're talking about a quite significant rate of growth in their nuclear stockpile. And this is all obviously a part of China strengthening its strategic profile and its strategic presence in the world to go along with being one of the 2 economic superpowers. Chinese military spending has increased for every year for the past 28 years. Their nuclear stockpile is starting to increase, their navy has grown, and so on. And their the general military arms production has expanded and is now very, very capable indeed. So this is a move onto the world stage by China as a major power. That's what we're seeing.
Yeah, indeed. What, North Korea remains troublesome. How can you assess the progress that they are making?
Well, as far as we can see from the missile tests, and they had over 90 missile tests during the course of 2022, they are still in an experimental and development stage. They're still figuring out some things with how to get the longest range nuclear missiles nuclear tipped, but they seem to be pressing ahead with that. And given that they have hitherto seemed to have solved every basic technical problem that they have faced along the path of both developing their nuclear weapons and developing their missile technologies, I think we should assume that they're going to solve the conundrum of long-range nuclear missiles before too very long. At the moment, their active stockpile, so far as we can estimate, is still pretty small. It's in the vicinity of some 30 nuclear warheads. Might be a bit bigger based on the material they've got available, but we don't think so. But those numbers, I think, also could slowly tick up. But perhaps the more worrying thing will be the range over which they can deliver those weapons.
Yeah, some sobering analysis that you've done, Dan. Good to have you on. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.